Your grandma went missing today. This is a 96-year-old woman, by the way. This is my father's grandmother, and her and my mom actually got into a disagreement on the phone yesterday. They were arguing about horses, actually. So my dad had a bunch of horses, and he kept them out at his family's quarter horse ranch. Now, my dad's family has had this quarter horse ranch for generations, and my dad has always worked out there and taken care of the land, the property, the horses, etc. But last month, he was hit and killed by a negligent truck driver, and ever since then, my great-grandmother has been badgering my mother about what she plans to do with all of my dad's horses. And so yesterday, my mom finally told her that she's just going to sell my dad's horses because it makes her too sad to go out there and take care of the horses and to go to the ranch in general. It'll just be easier for her to sell them and walk away from the ranch entirely. And then my great grandmother asked my mom for a copy of my dad's death certificate, and my mom was like, no, there's personal stuff on there. I don't want you to have a copy of that. And my great grandmother got really angry about this and started this huge argument with my mother, and they went around in circles over my dad's death certificate. And finally, my great grandmother is like, you know what, let's just meet in person tomorrow and have lunch together, and we'll talk about this, and we will also talk about the horses. I'll help you figure out how to get them sold and stuff. And so they set a place and a time, and my mom shows up there for lunch today, and my great grandmother does not. And so every 15 minutes, my mom is calling my great grandmother, wondering where she is. It's been like 2 hours. She still hasn't shown up. So my mom leaves and calls my dad's mom and is like, hey, your mom never showed up to lunch. We planned lunch and she never showed up. And so then my grandma calls her brother. She calls the whole family. Everybody's driving around looking for my 96-year-old great grandmother because she's missing. Her husband, who is out at the ranch, said that she left there to go meet my mother when she should have, but she never arrived at the restaurant. So everybody's like retracing her steps. Nobody can find her anywhere. Everybody is worried. And then suddenly my mom's phone rings, and it is not my great grandmother. It is the funeral home that cremated my father. And they're telling my mother that my great grandmother is there because she set this whole thing up to have my mom sitting at that restaurant waiting for her. And instead of going to that restaurant, she drove to another town to that funeral home. And that old bat was out there trying to demand that they give her a copy of my father's death certificate because my mother wouldn't. No, my great grandmother going missing yesterday and then appearing at the funeral home where my father was cremated, trying to demand unredacted copies of his death certificate and death records had absolutely nothing to do with her being a little sad old lady who missed her grandson and wanted some sort of connection, and everything to do with her being a 96-year-old woman trying to make a power play against her grandson's grieving widow. This woman was not there with good intentions. She was demanding an unredacted copy, which she can't have because my father's death is a criminal investigation. He was killed. She wants those unredacted copies so she can use them legally to try to claim ownership of my father's horses. My dad bred champion bloodline horses, and he had bred his horses with a different champion bloodline horse called Metallic Cat. Right before he passed away, the babies were born. And so my great grandmother heard that my mother was selling the horses, and the very first thing out of her mouth was to request an unredacted copy of my father's death certificate. That was because she was going to try to use that death certificate to sign my father's horses over to herself so that my mom could not sell my dad's horses like she planned to sell them. This is literally not a case of a grieving old lady. It is a bitter old lady trying to make drama over some horses with my dad's grieving widow. Like, this is literally just old lady horse drama. I'm gonna explain my dad's horse drama, and nobody better call me a horse girl over this, okay? So my dad had champion bloodline horses. Bloodlines are a huge deal in the horse community. He then bred these horses with another champion bloodline horse called Metallic Cat. This is a $14 million bloodline, okay? And so my dad lucked out. His horses got pregnant. They had babies, but then boom, 5 days later, my dad gets killed. So now my mom has all these horses. These horses were a good investment for my dad, who had been a lifelong rancher and could raise them to be generational gold mines. So what he was using those horses for was he was going to raise them and keep breeding and selling them, and he was going to basically create a generational gold mine for his grandchildren, my children. And one day my older son was supposed to take over for my father, but my older son didn't get taught fully because my dad got killed prematurely. So now my mom has all of these champion bloodline horses that she cannot turn into the assets that they were supposed to turn into. She needs to cut her losses and she needs to sell them because she is in millions of dollars in debt now because of my dad's medical bills, because he was on life support for 10 days and he underwent a shit ton of extremely expensive surgeries. And the guy who killed my dad was found financially judgment proof, which means he has no garnishable wages and he has no assets for us to take from him. So he ultimately will not have to pay a penny of that, but it still has to be paid. So my mom has to pay it. So she needs to cut her losses and sell all of my dad's generational gold mine project that he had going on so that she can pay off the medical debt. However, my great grandma does not want my mother to do that. She wants to keep my dad's gold mine project and give it to her kids who are alive who know how to finish finish that project so that they can steal all of that profit and money from my dad. They do not plan on involving me or my children in this at all because I am adopted. And again, bloodline is everything to horse people, okay? So they're basically just trying to sneak in and steal my dad's gold mine horses. And she's doing this by trying to get my dad's death certificate and illegally signing my dad's horses over to her, which sounds like, oh, that should be an easy fix, right? No, it's a civil issue. So if my mom takes it to court to fight off my great grandma is 96 years old. She is going to die before she pays my mother back a dime also. So she is just going to get these horses, sign them over to her kids, and then have no financial responsibility for the hundreds of thousands of dollars in horses that she steals from my mother while my mother drowns in millions of dollars of medical debt from my father being killed.